First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got
that. Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective, but an erratic detective, is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hello there, welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Gildarie show. Thanks for being with us. It's a new year, so the company and on behalf of Gildarie, we'd like to wish you a successful 2024. We hope 2024 will be successful for you. We come into this life to seek happiness and to provide happiness for other people. I hope that you will achieve all your hopes, dreams, pleasures, and what have you for 2024. Let me repeat again. We come into this world to help others and to facilitate others in their endeavors. That is the purpose we're here. And I hope you are facilitated and you facilitate others in the pursuit of happiness in 2024. I also would like to thank with immense pleasure the famous Guyanese parents who bought this shirt and tie for me. I cannot say who they are for reasons of protocol, but I'm immensely grateful. I don't think our cameras capture fully our colors, but it's a turquoise shirt. And I'm so appreciative of what they've done. I will wear it again for our program on Wednesday. 20 years from now, when the son is looking at this program, he will have a sense of history. His parents bought the shirt and tie for me. Having said that, I'd like to welcome a remarkable Guyanese to our program. This is his third appearance. This gentleman factually is the longest serving public sector person in the history of Guyana. He was a minister in the Forbes Burnham government. He served subsequent presidents to that, and he is currently serving the current president of Guyana. It's been a long, long, long journey of this remarkable Guyanese. I am quite happy to have him here. As the weeks and the months go by, I will hope to have him here because his views are always important for the recording of history because of what he knows and how long he has been around. Our guest this evening is the phenomenal, iconic Christopher Kit Nascimento. Kit, nobody calls you Christopher. Thanks for being here for the third time. There are a couple of things that must be said for the recording of history before we get into the getting to Venezuela. One, I thought someone like you, with your enlightened view of the world, would have had a Christmas holiday in an exotic place like Turkey, Portugal, Philippines, India. You went to Miami? Once you see Miami, you don't want to see it again?
Freddie, is that the first question you're going to ask me?
I said there's a preamble. We haven't gone into the question. Oh, why Miami?
Well, first, Freddie, allow me to wish all of the audience a very happy New Year and hopefully a prosperous one in the year ahead. And thank you, Freddie, for that very flattering and overburdened interview introduction. And let me also say how much I like your tie and your shirt.
I will tell you the family that brought it
you
for
look
me.
more elegant than I've seen you for a long time.
That's a very uncomplimentary New Year's gift. But I have some preamble questions. And the first one was, why you didn't go to Portugal or India? Why
Well,
Miami?
I
Oh,
went
God,
actually.
not Miami.
I went to the Dominican Republic actually before
very good.
Miami, and so I thought I would explore the DR, which we are developing, as you know, quite significant relations with. I must admit that I didn't see much of the DR, as I was only there for 3 or 4 days. So I did go to a more interesting place than Miami for a large part of my holiday, but I have very good friends in Miami. Guyana, Miami, as you know, has a substantial Guyanese population. So I share friendships with many of them. So it was not visiting Miami, but visiting Guyanese in Miami.
Okay, it's funny that interesting you should mention the DR, the Dominican Republic. I went into DSL supermarket in Sherry Street, and I saw they have a variety of coffees from Dominican Republic, and I only drink decaffeinated, and it's excellent. It is excellent. I don't know why we would spend so much money buying Folgers and Nestles, but I still want to pursue some personal angles in this interview so it could be left for history. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people since I started the Freddie Kissoon Notebook on television in the mid-90s. And some of them are very serious people, but they have been light moments which they laugh, read poetry. I looked at your interviews and you're never smiling and laughing. Am I right in what?
Well, these are serious interviews, Freddie. My wife will tell you that I have sometimes a rather vicious sense of humor.
Let us try something before we get into the heavy intellectual stuff. You've been around a long time. What type of music you listen to? Speaking for myself, I'm in my early 70s. I like the 60s and 70s reggae from Jamaica. I like the Drifters and Benny King from my era. I was driving with my wife to Puerto Air Supply was playing. I like Charles Aznavour from France, Demis Rousseau from Greece, Ingeborg Humperdinck, Barry Manilow. That's my genres. What type of music you listen to?
I have a very Catholic taste in music. And for the listeners, unless they think I'm talking about religion, it means an extremely wide and varied taste in music.
Some of the names I called, Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond
Johnny
happens
Mathis.
to be my favorite of all
Okay,
singers.
listen to this. That's my
And I
wife.
have every Neil Diamond record ever printed.
So does my wife. But I am going to stump you. I'm going to stump you.
Don't ask me for names of songs.
Okay. He has later in his career,
Yes.
he produced a wonderful album titled Serenade. And there is a very, very romantic song. In The Last Picasso. Do you know that song? I mean, that's a later album. But what's your favorite Neil Diamond
Well, let me
song?
tell you, I went to the Neil Diamond show on Broadway,
Yeah.
which is quite remarkable. It's a whole life story of Neil Diamond. He doesn't appear directly in it, but the actor who represents him sings almost as though he's somehow recorded Neil Diamond's voice within himself. But when you see that story, his real story, it's actually a very sad story. He did not have an easy life.
Yeah, he was born in Brooklyn, yeah.
Right, and he went through, I think it was 3 marriages. He got involved in with the mafia at one time. They almost bought him over. Had to fight his way out of that. Then his success and his burgeoning wealth overtook his personal life. And altogether, in spite of the wonderful songs that he has produced, he himself, I think, regrets much of the life he led.
Well, I'll tell you something about him that you may not know. In the entertainment business, not the Americans themselves, in the entertainment business, he has the distinction of paying the highest alimony to a divorced wife.
I wouldn't doubt, judging from what I saw of his life on Broadway, that does not surprise me.
You can recall some of the songs that you like. I like The Last Picasso. Then there's Longfellow Serenade. But you have Shiloh. You have Song Song Blue.
I love Song Song Blue.
Okay, Kit, let your hair down. Do like Ian MacDonald on this program. Give us the first line. Song Song Blue. Everybody knows one.
I cannot sing it,
Song
Freddie.
Blue, everybody grows one. Me and you, subject to the blues now and then. Come on.
Freddie, you ought to have been a singer. You missed your career.
After Song Blue, what
my
else?
wife will tell you.
You
that
can
I
carry
cannot
one
sing.
line.
I have a good speaking voice. I cannot sing. I will not
Try
sing. Certainly.
Song.
No, you will not tempt me to sing. I am not going to sing for you, Freddie.
Well, at least Anyway, look. I saw this gentleman come out of his car going to Marseille supermarket. And this man, when you see him coming out of the car and he said, "Hi, Freddie," you will never believe that this man is 92 years of age.
Celebrated 3 days ago.
Kit, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
Right, we're still into the personal thing before we get into this. Kit, I understand that the memoir will be out in about 6-7 months' time. I want you to know it's recorded. I am requesting a complimentary copy. I am not paying $10,000 for that book.
Freddie, you'll be one of the first.
Okay.
But I don't promise you what did you say?
6, 7, 8 months?
No, you won't see it this year.
We won't see this year.
No.
But I'm telling you, given your longevity in public life, that is probably going to be a big seller in Guyana.
Well,
a memoir of Christopher Kit Nascimento.
I hope it arouses a considerable amount of interest and attention. I've led, I think it's fair to say, an interesting life.
It has a part about the unique way you got married to Jem Madu. I think you married in the ocean shore.
We got married in the Esquiva River, actually.
And you were in the water.
Well,
That is in the book?
Yes, all of that's in the book.
The book is carrying photographs?
Yes, it will.
So, Miss Madu, before she became Mrs. Nascimento, she was in the Essequibo River, and the priest who had the wedding vows in the water.
Yes, we were standing at the foot of a waterfall.
And the priest, so who?
And we were all in bathing suits.
Who's the priest then?
I couldn't tell you.
You can't remember?
No.
You can't remember the priest that officiated
It's a priest I didn't even know.
So you just selected the priest at random.
He was the priest in the Escrew River at the time, and someone recommended him to my wife. So he came and performed.
So what about your favorite movies from the 70s and 80s? I like a movie called, Americans say Z, but I prefer to say Z. I like a movie from my time that is at the top of my list. The director, both movies was directed by a Greek director, Kostagavros. Z, about the military overthrow of the Greek government, and Missing, by one of movie's best actor, Jack Lemmon, about the 1973 coup in Chile, Missing. That's a fantastic movie about what happened to Allende in 1973. What movies can you recall that you really liked?
I like Jack Lemmon, or at least I liked him when he was alive. I have a very eclectic taste in movies, but to tell you the truth, I like action movies.
Oh, you like Bruce Lee and those things?
A bit Bruce Lee, yes, but...
So you like the latest genre? Indiana Jones and those kind of things? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Blade Runner and those kind of...
Anything that has a great deal of action. I like espionage movies, particularly.
You like espionage movies?
I like movies that deal with diplomacy. And the best movie I've seen for very many years is Oppenheimer, which is, I think, just won the
man, the Golden Globe.
Golden Globe, yes.
You like movies. Do you know it is said that the best spy movie ever produced is A Spy Who Came In From the Cold?
Yes, I know. I read the book.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And very true to real life.
Yeah. And then there's a nice movie about diplomacy that you would like, with Julie Andrews and the Egyptian guy that died, that starred in Dr. Zhivago. The Tamarind Seed. You should see The Tamarind Seed.
I know. I think I've seen it. But I don't have an enormously good recall of the movies I've seen.
Omar Sharif
certainly not like you.
All right. I'm going to go into the interview, but just one last preamble question. You're married to a theatrical person. I'm married to a chemical engineer. What is it like being married to a theatrical person? They sing all the time. If they see a song, they say,
Jem is a producer.
But she's in the theater.
She's not an actress.
So she doesn't.
She is.
When she's on television, she hears a song. She doesn't say, "Over the rainbow."
She's a planner. She's a manager. She's a boss.
There's a movie called Boss of Bosses.
In and out of marriage, I might say.
You're smiling. You see, how many interviews you've ever done that? How many interviews you ever smiled so broadly?
Freddie, you never ask me questions to make me smile.
Okay, but then...
You ask me questions that are tough questions that I have to seriously think about.
But you want us to skip Venezuela and let's talk about young Nascimento, middle-aged Nascimento, his travels abroad. Well, which is your favorite country? That you must have traveled to a lot of... a 92-year-old guy that has served Guyana since he was 18. You must have seen more than 90 countries. Which countries you like visiting? Can't be Miami.
Absolutely not, no.
Nepal, India, Pakistan, Egypt.
I've been to Pakistan. I haven't been to Pakistan. I've been to India. I have not been to China, which I regret not having done. The closest to that I got was Hong Kong, if you call Hong Kong China. I've been to all of East and West Africa, a good deal of Europe, the Middle East. One of the countries that impressed me most in terms of cleanliness,
South Korea.
Efficiency is Greece. Not Greece.
Portugal?
No.
Country near to Greece?
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they say South
I
Korea.
have a grandson who lives in and out of
That's from your first marriage.
Switzerland. Yes.
You keep in touch with him?
He's become almost like a son to me.
Okay.
I lost my son, and my grandson, whom I came to know within the last maybe 10 or 12 years really well, and now he's like a son.
But you come to know him when you were in your 80s?
Yes, we were in my 70s, 80s, yes.
Well, I'm glad we recorded this, so when we look back at your life, we could
And a lot of my life was devoted to sport. Huh?
Yeah.
I played rugby.
Yeah, I know you told me that in your last interview,
and motor racing, of course.
Yeah.
And I was pretty successful at both of them. And I'm still intensely interested in them. I watch all the Grand Prix races.
You missed out on cricket.
And I went to see Ferrari just 2 nights ago. Well worth seeing.
So you like Hamilton?
Oh, absolutely. Tennis, yes.
Yeah.
He's the greatest of all the tennis players, I think, that has lived so far.
No, the driver. I'm talking about the driver, Hamilton.
Oh, Hamilton, the driver, yes.
Who's your favorite tennis player? McEnroe?
McEnroe is good, but not as good as...
Lendl from Czechoslovakia. What would used to be Czechoslovakia?
What's the name of the great Swiss player? I'm very bad at names.
Yeah, I think I. Oh, geez, I forgot his name. Yeah.
He's probably the best of them all I've seen. Yeah.
Well, they say the Serbian is now the greatest male tennis player. Djokovic.
Oh, Djokovic, yes. Well, he certainly won more
Grand Slams
than any other player so far. And I think he will carry on probably for another couple of years before the youngsters start to beat him.
All right, so you were not big in football. Cricket and football you missed out on.
Well, my father played for the West Indies. He kept wicket. He was one of the first wicket keepers.
Kept wicket keeper for
the West Indies.
In Tests?
For the West Indies, Test match for the West Indies in the 1930s.
What was his name? Nascimento?
Nascimento. Cecil Nascimento. His picture's up in the GCC display of all the famous cricketers. But I did not inherit his great love and talent in cricket. I played cricket.
Federer is a Swiss guy.
That's a man, yes. By far the best, in my view. I played cricket for my first 11 at school in England, but rugby became my sport, and a lot of people in this country don't know it, but I was a championship swimmer in England.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know all the aspects of your life. You're 92.
And I swam,
you've been around a long time.
In the All England Championships.
Look at that. So we're going to get now into the interview. I'm glad we have recorded these things. Just one more thing remaining. Which of the Caribbean islands you like best? There's a whole set of them in CARICOM. I like Barbados. I think Jamaica is the most interesting of the Caribbean islands. And I like the Jamaican people.
I've recently been visiting Grenada.
I've lived there, I know.
And it's a fascinating little island.
Yeah, it is.
But you better be a good driver.
I know, I've lived there.
Because you're driving straight up or straight down.
Yeah, I work with the Grenadian government. I lived there.
And I worked for the Grenadian government also.
Okay.
I worked for Bishop.
Yeah, well, I worked for Bishop.
I know you did.
Yeah. I'm glad we've had this conversation, and when we reach the fourth interview, we'll go into some other personal details.
I'll have to bone up on all of these personal questions so I can remember the names.
Kit, did you ever entertain a modicum of fear that Maduro would have invaded?
Yes, I did, and I still do.
That he will want to invade?
Yes, one has to understand exactly what promotes and drives and influences Maduro's actions. He's been for a long time a ruthless dictator. He's said to be supported about less than 25% of the population of Venezuela at the moment. If he were to conduct a free and fair election, that has been estimated roughly the vote he would get. Chavez, followed by Maduro, has bankrupted Venezuela. Its people, as we know, are fleeing in hordes. About 85%, the last time I checked, of the population are at or below the poverty level in that country. One of the richest countries in all of South America. I made some notes before coming, which I can refer to on that subject. Venezuela at one time was producing 3 or 4 times the amount of oil that we produce and will ever produce. They have the largest single oil reserves in the whole world. And between Chavez and now Maduro, they're producing 700,000 barrels of oil a day, considerably less than we are already producing. That is the man that we are dealing with, and that is what he drives him now to covet the oil and gas that is part of our future. He's not interested in the land. He's interested in our oil resources in the ocean. And that is his ambition, to grab them. He is using the claim for the Essequibo as a pretense to go after that oil. And that is what we have to understand when we're dealing with Maduro and Venezuela. If we don't understand that, we won't understand what we're dealing with. I'd like to see if I could find some of the figures that I had made a note of. We know, of course, that the Chavez and then Maduro nationalized their oil industry.
Yeah.
They were the largest supplier of oil to the United States of America at one time. The U.S. depended on Venezuelan oil. Then in 2014, there was a drastic reduction in the price of oil worldwide. And they had mismanaged the Venezuelan economy to the extent in which they were completely and utterly dependent on oil. They have revenue from almost nowhere else. When the oil crash or reduction came in 2014, the economic crash followed it. Now the US government has imposed severe sanctions, which they are attempting to negotiate their way out of, and will not succeed in doing that because he's not going to hold a free and fair election. He's
going to be around then?
He is going to be very much around. The Venezuelan claim that Maduro is pursuing is not about to go away, and it's something we're going to have to seriously address going forward.
But the ICJ, from all that we know, the ICJ is going to rule in Guyana's favor.
Of course,
some guy said that there was some jiggery-pokery. Well, his hands will be considerably tied.
Well, let's examine that. How serious is he about using force? Let's look at the Argyle Agreement. The Argyle Agreement, or Declaration as it's called, postponed the use of force. Postponed. It extracted a commitment from Maduro which he could not avoid, with the audience he had and with the presence of the observers and the structure in which the Argyle meeting.
We're going to come to Argyle. I just want to finish the question that when the campaign for the referendum was going on, you were faithful that there would have been an invasion.
Absolutely I was, because we're dealing with an insane man.
All right. I want to look at some things written about the Argyle Declaration, because everybody in Guyana, to say that everybody in Guyana is an expert.
An expert, yes.
Since we got oil, everybody's an oil expert. Let me read for you, and then I'd like to have your response, because I know you're vastly experienced, and some of these people don't have the understanding of international realpolitik and intrigue as you do. This is what an economist, Dr. Thomas Singh, who heads a climate, who heads an institution at UG called the Green Institute, and his economics is about climate, and he is an economist.
He's a pro-environmentalist.
But, right, he deals with environmental economics, but he suddenly swung into international politics. This is what he said about the Argyle Declaration. Venezuela conceded nothing in the Argyle Declaration, while Guyana seemed satisfied. That there will be future talks outside of the ICJ, just as Venezuela wanted.
Well, that's an idiotic statement. How can the man say that Venezuela conceded nothing?
I can't believe that. Venezuela conceded nothing.
Article 1, the first article, agreed, and I have it here, agreed that Guyana and Venezuela, directly or indirectly, will not threaten or use force against one another in any circumstances, including those consequential to any existing controversies between the two states. That is an enormous concession. as I said earlier, he may not eventually honor it, but he has to honor it now. And he has to honor it for some time in the future. So that in itself, leaving any other of the articles out. But then you go to Article 6. Read Article 6. Agreed that both states will refrain, whether by words or deeds, from escalating any conflict or disagreement arising from any controversy between them, and another enormous concession that relieves us completely from any possible danger of an invasion at this foreseeable time. And that man says that
Dr. Thomas,
nothing was conceded.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Need I say more?
Okay. Now let me get your reaction to Dr. Janet Bulkan, who is a trained academic in forestry, and now, like Dr. Thomas Singh, she is swung to.
Where does she live?
She lives in British Columbia.
Exactly.
And her scholarship is in forestry. But this is her take now on international politics and international real politics.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I have little or no time for these Guyanese who live abroad and pronounce on the futures of our country. Let them come home or shut up.
But you want me to, I'd like your comment on what she has to say. This is a woman who went to the OAS and asked the OAS to stop petroleum production in Guyana because it's bad for the climate.
Yes, of course she would say that because she doesn't live here. And where she lives, I'm sure produces
Canada,
a substantial amount of oil and gas in Canada.
Okay.
Why doesn't she ask the Canadians to stop it? These are such idiotic statements that I don't think they deserve even a response, but go ahead.
Okay. Why did Guyana simply not go to the Argyle meeting?
Do you want me to answer that?
Well, but she's actually saying here that Guyana should not have gone. Mm-hmm. It is no wonder then that Maduro described Argyle as a win for Venezuela on his return home. But how can you knock? How could you knock the declaration because he went to Venezuela and said he won?
What would you expect him to do? Go home and say he lost?
I mean,
and have somebody put a gun to his head?
So she's judging Guyana's loss in the declaration based on what
Maduro says. When in fact we gained a considerable number of concessions. Again, how can apparently intelligent people take these utterly idiotic positions, except that they're driven by such a huge political bias that they're unable to make sense?
Oh, this is the one I want to get you on because I think the viewers will be interested in this. She said...
We need to go back and look at more at the Argyle as we go on, because it automatically responds to people who make these outlandish statements.
But this is something she said that I want an appropriate adjective. I don't want to be harsh and say idiotic, but she said at the Argyle Declaration at St. Vincent, there has been no reprimand for the most. There's been no reprimand for Venezuela's serial violation of international law regarding its land boundary with Guyana. There was no reprimand at St. Vincent. Now, who was supposed to reprimand? Was that what?
You know what that displays?
What is that? Who's supposed to reprimand him?
What that displays is an ignorance of how you deal internationally and diplomatically. Are you going to go to a meeting with a man who heads a country that is the third largest military power in all of South America, which bartered its oil for Russian jets and tanks and warships, which has a population of 20-odd million, against ours of less than 1 million, in which if we were to go to war, we would lose it within half a day, and we must go to a meeting and fight with the man and encourage him to go to war with us.
But she wants him to be reprimanded.
Well, if you reprimand,
so who? It's the UN was the UN General Secretary was represented, the Brazilian president was represented, CARICOM was there. Who is supposed to reprimand him at this meeting? And was that the purpose? Was it supposed to negotiate?
The purpose of the meeting was what the declaration actually says. What is the heading of the declaration? It puts to rest, as I've said, particularly Articles 1, 3, and 6, any use or threat of force. But what was the heading of the declaration? The Joint Declaration of Argyle for dialogue and peace between Guyana and Venezuela. For dialogue and peace. That was the declared purpose of the declaration. And we are to go to that declaration and tell Mr. Maduro off. We must reprimand him at that. Or do we sit down with him and let him understand the mistakes that he's making and cause him to back away from a possible invasion of our country, which we had no means of defending ourselves against? But we will go there and tell him off and reprimand him. I cannot understand, Freddie, how women of that apparent level of learning can make such awfully foolish statements.
Well, she wrote this, she made her statements after somebody very well schooled in international diplomacy, international politics, and has worked for a lot of decades in that area in Guyana, the son of one of the famous PNC leaders, Neville Bisemba. And this is what...
Well, Neville Bisemba certainly would not agree with that.
I know, this is... But she wrote, even though Mr. Bisemba had clarified it in very, very pellucid terms.
I actually
said, let me tell you what Mr. Bisemba said. This is Mr. Bisemba's take on it, and you think Janet Bulkan would have learned from a scholar speaking. Neither did the court ask Guyana to vacate the Essequibo region pending the determination of the matter. So what is it that then Guyana gave up, lost or conceded in St. Vincent? How was President Ali played by President Maduro? I'll read that.
I have Bisemba's.
Yeah. This is it. Right. This is it here. So the man said that the ICJ did not ask Guyana to vacate the Essequibo region pending the determination of the matter. So at St. Vincent, what it is that Guyana gave up, lost or conceded, even though Bisemba wrote that, Janet Bulkan still came with her nonsense. Now listen to what Professor Vassiani, writing in the Jamaica Observer of 24th of December, said.
Yes, I know.
It must be acknowledged that the Argyle Initiative provides no long-term solution to the territorial dispute over Essequibo. Well, of course it didn't, because that was not the intention, and that solution will be provided for in the fullness of time by the ICJ. So how could the Jamaican guy write that when the Argyle, the St. Vincent meeting was not about settling the border dispute? How could people write these things and expect people to take them seriously?
Well, I hope that they're not taken seriously.
You would think this is what December said.
I read December.
Well, it is clear to me that the Argyle outcome document, naysayers apart, is cause for celebration and relief. Over to you.
Exactly what I was saying. I thought that Neville wrote an excellent piece.
Yes, I thought so too. The man knows his scholarship.
And a first-class analysis. And he used his diplomatic experience to understand what was achieved at St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Neville focused on exactly what was achieved. Now, the Argyle Declaration doesn't bring the matter to an end.
No.
And was never intended to do so. And indeed, its articles require that we go on and meet and have further discussions. But let us understand this. The issue that Guyana has addressed at the ICJ is whether or not the agreement, the 1899 agreement, is legally valid or not. We're not addressing whether or not Venezuela possesses the Essequibo or Guyana possesses the Essequibo. We're addressing the validity, the legal validity of the 1899 arbitration award. That is why we find in the Argyle Agreement the term dispute as opposed to controversy. Because controversy is not a legal term, but dispute is. But what's in dispute? Not whether or not the Essequibo belongs to Guyana. What's in dispute is whether or not the tribunal is legally valid. If, of course, the tribunal is ruled by the ICJ, which we expect will be the case, to be legally valid, then ipso facto, Essequibo is part of Guyana. And that is what some of these, I'm tempted to call them clowns, don't seem to understand. Venezuela will not easily agree to the ICJ ruling. But Venezuela is a United Nations country.
Yeah.
Venezuela is a signatory to the UN Charter. The UN Charter requires every signatory to observe the rulings of the ICJ. And if Venezuela continues to refuse to acknowledge and observe that ruling, then we move to the next step and get the United Nations to act to enforce it. In the meantime, under the declaration, we will continue to hold discussions with Venezuela, hopefully develop mutual interests as border countries, and keep at bay any possibility of a desperate man desperately trying to remain in office doing something utterly reckless, which he's perfectly capable of doing. And that brings me back, Freddie, to what I was saying about oil. It is not beyond the possibility that what we're caught up in here is an international intrigue well beyond our immediate challenges.
That's interesting. Let me hear the expansion on that.
As we continue to produce oil and sell it to Europe, we are reducing the price of oil. And at the same time, making it less and less possible for Russia to sell its oil to Europe. So we are increasing the independence of European nations, democratic European nations, on Russian oil. Germany, for instance, was totally dependent on Russian oil. But Russia's in the war with Ukraine. Wouldn't Russia welcome a little digression? Wouldn't Russia possibly welcome US and British attention being distracted elsewhere, like a little battle in South America? We have to think big, not small. And
some would say that's a conspiracy theory.
Let me tell
Maduro
you.
and Putin.
Yes, it could be viewed as a conspiracy theory, but we have to think big on this matter. We have to see what the ultimate target of Venezuela's Maduro is. Ask yourself a simple question. Why does he want the Essequibo, if not our oil and gas? What earthly reason would he have to risk an invasion? And let me tell you why he hasn't invaded to date. Because he is scared stiff of what the Americans and British might or might not do to prevent it. Why did he make this enormous fuss and mobilize 3/4 of his nation, of his army, his military, when a little Royal Naval frigate that has a helicopter on the back of it, has 50 men on board, and has minimum or little firepower visiting us? But he mobilizes 3/4 of his military strength. Not because of the ship, but because of the message the ship sends. That's the bigger picture. And that is why our greatest strength in defending our integrity is diplomacy. That is why we have to be sure that the Organization of American States is fully in support of our cause. That is why we have to keep Mr. Maduro guessing as to whether American troops and British troops will be here if he attempts to send a soldier across the border.
But let me ask you this. Elections are being held this year. He loses the election, but he grabs power as a similar scenario in Guyana in 2020. He remains the president. Do you think in that kind of scenario, obviously the sanctions will increase, he may want to divert from all of that? Divert meaning from his situation in Venezuela.
Absolutely right. By invading, except for one thing.
Well,
he will have to deal with the revolt in his own country.
But the other thing is, I know time is going, and I wanted to get your opinion on. I am an admirer of President Lula. I like President Lula. I think he's one of the better leaders.
I share you.
Well, I don't think Lula. I believe with this referendum thing, I believe he got a dressing down from Lula. I think Lula was saying, "How could you possibly hope to remain as you are? You're going to invade a small, unarmed country that is peaceful. You're facing sanctions. The Americans are breathing down your neck, and you're going to go and invade a small, helpless country? What is wrong with you? Don't you think Lula restrained him and will restrain him?"
Well, judged by the fact that the moment there was a possibility of an invasion, Brazil shut the door to an invasion through Brazil. An invasion across the jungle and from the sea would be 10 times as difficult as if they were able to come in from the south to Brazil. So Brazil mobilized troops and shut the door. That tells you Lulu's position. And why did Lulu commit to the meeting in Argyle and send one of his most powerful representatives to attend?
Yeah, his foreign advisor.
Exactly. So we know where Brazil stands on this. Brazil, and indeed other CARICOM leaders, have had good relations with Venezuela for one reason or another. Access to their fuel and oil at one time. Chavez, if you remember, was giving away oil as though it was going out of style to the CARICOM countries. The relationships between many of the CARICOM countries in Venezuela and the South American countries have always been there and always been good. But Maduro, by his absolute recklessness, has destroyed that for himself. And if we had not gone to St. Vincent, the situation would have been 1,000 times worse. Because those leaders, the ones I've just been speaking of, wanted the meeting to take place. They could see the value of it. And that is why we attended it. One of the mistakes I think that our opposition made was not to go along with our president and attend that meeting also.
It would have provided value and experience. Our operator signaled that our time has come. I'd like you to just speak to viewers on the future of this conflict, how you see it. If Maduro goes out, he finds it logistically impossible to stay in power. Do you think the opposition, the lady Machado,
Yes,
do you think she will accept the ICJ, the ruling
she's
of the
already
ICJ?
committed to it. She has the Venezuelan opposition have committed to the ICJ ruling.
You think, yeah. You think he's going to survive? You think 2024 is the exit door for him?
That is more than a problem.
How is he going to survive a rig election again?
He can't. And if he attempts to rig it again, he will face the same revolt that put Chavez into power.
I got you to laugh and laugh heartily in the program, but the time has come. You said you can't sing, so you want to recite any lines from Shakespeare, from Walcott, or anybody, just a few. If music be the food of love, play on, give me excess of it. Shakespeare from Twelfth Night.
You know, the person to ask to recite Shakespeare is watching this program on the other side of the desk.
Yeah. But she's not the guest. So recite 2 lines of a poem you like before we go.
I think Hamlet, when he said the lady does protest too much.
I think you cited that for personal reasons. You've been watching the Freddie Kissoon Gildarie show, and for the 3rd time, iconic Guyanese Christopher Kit Nascimento, and I need to mention that within a year's time, his memoir will be published, and that will be interesting. I thank the family, the parents of one of the Guyanese famous names that brought this shirt and tie for me a few days ago on a visit to Guyana. I will wear it again on my program on Wednesday. Once again, on behalf of Kit Nascimento and his wife who's in the studio, and Gildarie and the company Daybreak News and Guyanese Critic Facebook page, we wish you a wonderful 2024 and hope that the best come your way. Thanks for being with us. We will see you on Wednesday. As I normally say, see you later, catch you later, bye-bye.
Thank you, Freddie.